Is it on?
Not yet. Yeah, you're good.
Are we on?
Yeah, you're on. On.
Guys, thank you so much. Or should we give it a minute or should we just go?
No, go.
Just go.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for waiting for us. We had an initial problem with the internet. The internet stopped working, then it was working. We're on Sarah's phone data at the moment because the internet's gone off. And then on the way back in the house, there's been a fight in our garden with two magpies attacking a blackbird nest. So the little bird, the baby bird, Patch, we've called her, she fell out the nest. Now she's in our garage and we've been trying to coax her back into the nest. Mum and Dad keep flying in with little worms. Anyway, coming back into the house, we saw her in the mop bucket, so I was like, oh my God, what do we do? So anyway, just for you guys who are wondering about Patch, we've put the bucket on its side so Patch has access in and out. We've put some water in there. Sarah, after this, is going to go and get some mealworm. And it may be the case that we have to take her on as our own pet. Obviously, it'd be ideal to take her back to her parents. But guys, you know what? In life, things don't always pan out. And sometimes you just have to look after people or little black birds. Anyway, guys, how are you guys? That's the main thing. We have had a wild week. Guys, we're going to be answering your questions as normal. So please feel free to fire them up. I've got a sneaky suspicion I'm not going to really be able to get through many of my comments today because I know you guys have got a lot to talk about and you've got a lot of questions to ask me because, guys, I'm calling things already that nobody else is. I'm hitting these things left, right and centre. I'm knocking them out of the park. Am I the Messiah? I don't know, but I think I certainly could be. That's it, guys. Any questions, fire them up and Sarah will give them to me. So.
Now we've got one and it says, this is Mum's Poon. Hello, Sean. Do you believe World War III will happen this year? And if so, when do you believe?
Yeah, so I think it's already happening. But, you know, I mean, you know, everything that's happening around the world, the Russian threat is the main threat. Nothing else. You know, everything else is condiments. Russia's the world's leading nuclear superpower. So all eyes are on Russia. Now, what's going to happen in the next couple of months in Ukraine is going to be critical. You know, Ukraine have just been sent a load of money, but what needs to happen is that needs to then get turned from money into weapons, and then those weapons need to find their way to the front line to the Ukrainians. You know, so it's, you know, in my opinion, it's going to take months for this. Well, I'd say months, weeks at the very least, for this to happen. So. The reality is, what do we actually mean by world war? Because I'm already I'm pretty confident that we're already in it. And like 10 years time, when we all look back at this and it's all over, we'll say, that was the world war. But I think when NATO troops enter Ukraine, I think that's pretty much, you know, I don't think people can deny it anymore. And remember, I think that's going to happen next month. So what I want to talk about first, guys, is quite, hang on, is the, where are we, guys, where are we? Yeah, sorry, guys, I'm literally doing this on the cuff because we've been in and out with the internet. So, yeah, so conscription, guys, okay? So I want to talk about conscription because it's all over the news again. People are talking about conscription. You know, the Polish are talking about, you know, sending the Ukrainians back to Ukraine and, you know, and all sorts of crazy things. I don't think this is going to work. For those of you who've been in the military and you understand how a military works, you need trained soldiers and you need trained soldiers who know how to work together with each other and for each other. You can't just tell people to go and fight and expect that to be, you know, an effective unit. So I think all this talk of conscription, I think it's counterproductive and and I think it's gonna, you know, it's gonna take people. It's going to be more costly. Let me put it this way, guys. Okay. When the Russians invaded, the main invasion in 2022, if the West had have got their act together and, you know, done intervention, none of this would have happened, okay? There would be thousands upon thousands of lives saved. But the reality is nobody acted quick enough, and, you know, the Ukrainians were left, and they were left to deal with it themselves. Yes, of course, they was given lots of weapons, but essentially it's the Ukrainians who've been dealing with this problem themselves. You know, if the Russians had have come up against, say, you know, a professional, well-funded, well-organised, experienced military, they'd have been pushed out within a week, and then we would have all been sat in Moscow right now, drinking beers and paying with euros. But the reality is, the governments are too slow to act. They're always reactive. So each side builds their forces up, slowly, nobody wanting to make that first move. And then when that first move does happen, both sides are a lot more powerful, and the conflict is a lot more powerful itself.
Griffin's put, no, the UK had been training the Ukrainians since 2014.
Yeah, interesting enough, I do know that. If you know my real name, you can Google me and you can see all about it. They were training the Ukrainians, yes, but the problem is they were training the lower ranks of the Ukrainians and giving them basic training. So what they were doing is they were giving, for example, they were teaching Ukrainian soldiers how to use Western tactics, which is perfectly fine. Now, the problem there is Western tactics are developed with Western leadership, Western knowledge of the grouping system, and then those Ukrainian soldiers then would go back to Ukraine and they would be under Ukrainian command. Now, the Ukrainian commanders didn't know how to use those soldiers in an effective way. So yes, they were training them up, but the effectiveness of those soldiers was never utilised on the front lines. And that's quite evident. Sorry if I burst anyone's bubble. So, yeah, so that's conscription, guys, okay? So, what do we think? And is there anyone online at the moment who's been following this debacle that's been happening in London with the Big Ben going silent, with the horses running around covered in blood? Because I called this pretty much straight away after I had a good think about it. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, what's happening here is some really esoteric stuff. There's a lot of numerology meaning to this, and there's a lot of symbolism in it as well.
Vader's put, I have been out of the army 10 years. Do you think I'd be called back?
Well, it depends how old you are. I think UK, I don't know where you're coming from, Vader, but what a cool name, Vader. I think that should have an applause. But yeah, so what I would say is I think 54 is the cutoff, So if if you got out at 40, yeah, you probably would be. Have you not had a letter already? Because I know a lot of my friends who are ex-military, they've already had letters back, and like 2 or 3 letters because they didn't reply. Now, normally you get 1 letter every, like, I think it's, I don't know, every year or something. And, you know, it just goes by. Now, I didn't respond to my letter, and I never do. But very strangely, I got sent another letter like a month or so later, which I've never had done before. Speaking to some of my friends, you know, I'm like, hey, you know, you had some letters sent. He's like, yeah, they keep writing to me. So I know the military are actively trying to pull back those experienced soldiers, because don't forget, you know, I think I did a video on our other platform about this. You can't just, you know, so one of the things at the moment in the UK, we have more people leaving the military than are joining. Now, that in itself is a problem, but, you know, the reality is we need like 2 or 3 people joining for every 1 person that's leaving, because the wealth of knowledge and the experience and everything else that person's gained over their career, say you've done 22 years, you know, all that experience has gone, it's lost, it's not coming back. So it's not really a numbers game, because when that person leaves, I don't know, a Sergeant Major, Colour Sergeant, whatever, you know, after his 22 years, a day one, week one recruit, you can't, you know what I mean, they're not comparable. You can't compare those two together. So the reality is we need a lot more people joining the military in the UK, and we need to train them, and we really need to be doing that 2 years ago. The reality is we're on the back foot, the Russians are on the front foot, and we really need to do things quick.
What does the incident of the horses in London symbolise for us? That's from Rachel.
So for us, you know, I guess time will tell, and I've not really digested it fully yet. I just saw it, and all the you know, when you see all the pieces out in front of you, and you're like, wow, okay, so let's go with all the pieces then. So again, I didn't put much stock into this, and there's two ways you can argue this. You can argue that people are using biblical prophecy as a timeline to progress things, or you can say, no, this biblical prophecy is coming true. I don't know what the answer is. All I'm telling you guys is the facts. So, the red heifers in Israel. You know, it's pretty much facts now that they're there. Now, according to most sources, these need to be sacrificed before Passover this year. Now, Passover starts on the 22nd of April, and it finishes on the 30th of April. So the 24th of April at 9 o'clock, that is perfectly within that window of opportunity to sacrifice those heifers. Now, the symbolism of the City of London, if you want to go back and back and back through, you know, through hundreds of years, you know, as the financial capital of the world, you know, the City of London now. The City of London has different laws to London itself, and a lot of people don't know that. The City of London, you know, it's you know, it has a separate mayor. It's like a city within a city. Yeah. So London itself controls the time around the world. So you're either an hour in front of London, an hour behind London, 2 hours in front of London, 2 hours behind London. You see where I'm going? So Big Ben symbolises, you know, global time, and all time essentially comes from Big Ben. Now, the fact that Big Ben went silent at 9 o'clock, now 9 o'clock's an esoteric number. In the Bible, you can calculate the number of the beast's name, and that comes to 9. There's lots of symbology there. Then you've got these two horses, you know, running through the streets, going wild. Now, if you want to go from the biblical context, the white horse would represent the coming of the Antichrist. That's what it would represent, guys. I'm not saying that. This is in Revelation 13:6, I think. The black horse would represent famine and hunger. Now, it's common knowledge that the world is suffering a food shortage. We've got the problems in Ukraine, first of all, you know. Huge problems with, you know, Ukrainians not being able to plant food because of the Russians, not being able to export because of the seaports, you know, the seaports being closed. The food that they can export, it has to be done by train, and because it's done by train, it takes longer because the train tracks in Ukraine are like this, in Europe they're like this, so you have to change train, which takes time, it costs money. So all this is just feeding into this narrative. Also, as the fuel prices go up, guess what? The food prices go up. Why? Because people stop growing food and they start growing rapeseed so they can make biodiesel and make, you know, biofuels. And that's the reality, you know. So at the moment, we've got a food crisis. Is the Antichrist here? I don't know. But that's what the symbolism of that was. And, you know, the reality is this red heifer could have been sacrificed on that day. I called it. I think it has. So the next couple of months are going to be key. Are we going to see an increase in violence in Israel, in the Gaza Strip, with the Houthis all over the Middle East? And is the third temple going to be built? I think it will be built, guys, all right? And once we watch that, we're going to be watching that in real time. And you guys are going to be remembering me sat here telling you about it, because I hit this first. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you for the gifts.
Guys, you gifters are amazing. I don't get to see you. I don't get to see the fantastic cowboy hats. I don't get to see any of that stuff. But you know what, guys? I think it's amazing. Guys, don't forget we're going to be putting this on our other platform. Am I allowed to say the other platform?
I don't think so, no.
Right. I don't know if we're allowed to say the other platform, but go and check out the link in our bio, guys. Show your support there. We put 2 videos on there, a minimum of two videos a day on there that are not anywhere else. And we'll be uploading this to that platform as well, so you can watch it in its entirety. Where are we? Yeah, so all the countries here, guys, right, everybody seems to be investing at the moment in air defense systems. Now, whether that's lasers, whether it's rockets, you know, this Iron Dome system that everybody seems to want. You know, so I feel everybody's really, really worried about, especially in Europe, they're worried about the threat coming over from the Russians, from the Belarusians, you know, from all that side of it. Because if you go and ask the people who actually live in Eastern Europe, Poland, Latvia, Estonia, you know, everybody understands the actual, you know, the nature of what's happening. And it's absolutely terrifying, guys. And you guys probably still haven't got enough water to last you, have you?
Thank you for all the likes, follows and shares.
Thank you indeed. Guys, sorry, I keep having to put my password in because...
What's happening the 6th of the 6th, 24?
6th of the 6th. I don't know why. I don't know what's happening. Tell me what's happening on the 6th of the 6th. I've missed it. I might have missed it. What are we on? Summer, maybe? I don't know.
Olympics, when's that?
No, that's the Olympics is on the 26th, guys.
Rachel started her prep cupboard.
Guys, the Olympics, okay? Are you guys? Is anyone thinking about going to the Olympics? Guys, there could be the Black Swan event in Paris at the Olympics. The amount of weapons that have been, you know, lost, confiscated, captured in Ukraine with this Russian conflict, is it beyond the realms of possibility that some of them have found their way into Paris? If this is true, you tell me what you think in the comments. If this is true, guys, all right, I'm really worried that there could be a mass incident in Paris, the likes that will put make 9/11 look like, look like somebody stopping a car. Because not only is it offensive weapons that are in Ukraine, but there's also the defensive weapons. So potential adversaries, so whoever may want to do an attack in Paris, they could then kit themselves out with the latest body armor, the latest night vision, the latest helmets. All this stuff's readily available for those who want to do us harm. Guys, if somebody was to come to me and ask me for my professional opinion on Paris, I would say, guys, you avoid that thing like the plague. Watch it on TV, you'll get better footage. Not a chance is Paris going to be safe, guys.
Oh, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Divergent, too.
Yeah, so here's one, guys. So UK force, it's come out as well that UK British military may be deployed on the ground in Gaza to help deliver aid. Now, what does that mean? What do we think? I don't know why the military would be deployed to do that when there's plenty of NGOs, non-government organisations, and that's predominantly their role around the world to hand out aid. It's not the job of the military to go in there and hand out food packages. So I'm really curious as to why this has come out in the news that, you know, British forces will be on the ground in Gaza. Makes absolutely no sense to me at all, unless there's an ulterior motive, unless there's something that they need to do. Maybe they're planning something bigger and they want a footprint. I really don't know, but it just makes absolutely no sense to me at all, guys, all right?
Coach Priest put, definitely not making it to elections. Honestly, too much happening.
Yeah, I mean, I said this, like, when I was... like last year, or in fact no, 20 when Biden won the election, so 2020. Me and my friend in Ukraine, we were sat there watching it, and we said no way is there going to be an election 2024. We said, you know, something needs to be big to make the election not happen, or to make it such a way that people will definitely vote one way, because there's no way in America that the Democrats can win again. And if the Democrats do lose power, I feel there's going to be so much that can come out of the woodwork. The Democratic Party would be, it'd be over for good, and that would be that would send shockwaves through America, shockwaves through the US dollar as well, which is, more importantly. A lot of people gave me, they're like, oh yeah, Sean, with your conspiracy theories, yeah, of course there's going to be an election. I'm like, well, you know what? It doesn't look like it now, does it? If the world is thrust into war, if there's a mass attack in Paris at the Olympics, no, there's not going to be an election. The world will be at war, and I feel that could be the Franz Ferdinand Black Swan event that could then just, you know what, guys? Gloves are off, we're going to war. It's going to be NATO versus BRICS.
Let me just read Angela's comment. Angela Dawson, 965. If everything goes belly up, how does a 63-year-old widow defend herself in her home?
Well, if you're in the UK, Angela, you're very lucky because we have a really relatively low crime rate. We really do, I'd say the best thing to do, don't forget, on the streets of the UK, so there's not going to be anarchy on the streets of the UK. I mean, I was in Kiev when the initial invasion happened the initial invasion happened like 2014, 2013, but the invasion in 2022, it was desperate, in Kiev. There were the Russians driving in from the north. There was the whole city. I mean, this is a city that I'd known for years. The whole city was on blackouts. There were military all over the streets. I almost got shot by the Ukrainians, and it was just chaos. Luckily, nothing like that's going to happen on the streets of the UK. What I would say is, in the UK, it will be death by 1,000 little cuts. Death by 1,000 cuts. It's just going to happen so slow in the UK, and that's because we're so far away from the actual fighting. For any, for these Russian forces to push through and get into the UK, they've got to go through Poland, which will be a hard job. Then Czechoslovakia, then Germany, then France. Well, maybe France would be easy. But you know what I'm saying, there's a lot of land for them to cover now. And what the Russians have learned is they don't want to overextend themselves anymore, because they did that in the initial invasion in 2022, and it was just embarrassing for them. They know they can't, they know their limitations. That's why they have to move slow. So I don't really see any threat to people in mainland UK.
Lulu's just put, what about the small boats? We don't know who is in them.
Yeah, well, the small boat, who's that from?
Lulu.
Lulu, hi Lulu. Yeah, so the small boats are a different issue, and sorry, Angela, if this is slightly going into your question, what you was thinking about as well. So you're right, we don't know who's in the small boats. We had somebody on our messaging us the other day saying that the boat that sank, and this is non-confirmed, I don't know if it's true, this is just what somebody wrote on here, and the reality is we'll never know. But somebody wrote that the boat sank because it was full of weapons. Now, it's been my professional opinion for a while that these boats that are coming along, not every one of them, but I would say a good amount of them would have contraband materials, waterproofed, hanging off the side. Why? Because of the money that they'll get for it when they get back. So could they have weapons hanging off the side of their boat as they're coming in? If the RNLI come out to get them, they just untie the knot and it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. If not, they've got a huge haul of weapons into the UK. So yes, that's a different matter. But I think if you don't live in a big city, if you don't go to these mass events, if you don't stay around these areas, I think you're fine. So what I would say is, moving forwards in time, if things do start happening in the UK, if there is more violence on the streets, guys, just stay at home. Make sure you've got food and water and you don't have to leave your house. You will be absolutely fine. Because these people, whatever you want to call them, combatants, they're not wanting to, they don't want you personally. They just want to make a big show. They want to get their message out there. They want to do something, catastrophic, huge, and get in the press and get all the media coverage. And that's the reality of the situation. That is terrorism 101, basically.
Thank you, Divergent 2.
Thank you so much, Diversion 2. Yeah, guys, so also on the UK, so in the UK, I think it was here. No, it was my on the other platform we've got, link in the bio. I did a video about this guy who was almost arrested for being openly Jewish. I couldn't believe I was reading it. I could not believe I was reading it. And then when I watched the video of this guy, you know, talking to the police officer, the guy is totally within his rights to be on the streets in London. Now, the chilling thing that was said to him by the police was, and I can't get the exact words right. You go and watch the video. It's there online. The police officer said something like, "You're being openly Jewish. You're instigating violence. You'll get attacked, and we can't help you. We can't protect you." Well, guys, what are they there for if they're not there to protect us? So the tacit implications of that statement are huge. So basically, from that statement, I'll say it again. If you're attacked, we can't protect you. There's too many of them. That's what he said. So the tacit implications of that is, if there's too many of them, we're not interested. If there's too many of them, we won't protect you. If there's too many of them, the law doesn't apply. Okay, that's fine. So who does the law apply to? Does it apply to you if you're on your own? If you're on 5? If you're 10? How many do you have to... What's the critical mass, what you have to get to before the law doesn't apply to you? And don't forget, there won't just be people like me watching this and saying, "Oh, right, that's disgusting." There'll be people on the other side now thinking, "Oh, right, okay. So if there's too many of us, we'll just get away with whatever we want." And that's the really dangerous thing that we're dealing with at the moment in this country. Also, this next election in the UK, again, if it happens, it's going to be really worrying, because I think for the first time, certainly that I can remember, I think people are going to start to vote on as a secular nation. Why am I saying that? Well, look at the success that George Galloway just had. Now, whatever you think's happening in Palestine, you know, I totally support your opinion, and I will agree with a lot of those points. What I want to focus on here is George Galloway was standing in the UK as a UK Member of Parliament. He had a Palestine flag on his flyers and he won. Guys, I don't think you should be able to have any flag on your flyers apart from the United Kingdom of Great Britain, the St. George, St. Andrew, wherever you are, you know, the flag of that country. Call me old-fashioned, all right? But if you live in England, if you live in Scotland, if you live in Wales, if you live in Northern Ireland, that's where you should be loyal to. I don't know, guys. Call me old-fashioned, call me crazy. I think this year, what we're going to see is mass secular voting. Because what did I just say? You know, people understand now that if there's too many of us, we can't do anything. And I feel that people have lost faith in the political system and nobody cares. So it's just going to be exploited. And the wrong type of people are going into politics, unfortunately.
Thank you, Artron.
What's that?
I'm just saying thank you to Artron.
Yeah, guys. So the likelihood is we've not been hacked by Russians. It's probably just gone off in it.
Is Jesus coming back soon?
What was that, Sarah?
Is Jesus coming back soon?
No, guys. I don't know. I don't really put much stock into this biblical prophecy and stuff. But what I will do is I'll make those connections for you guys, and I'll just let you know that these connections are there.
Mrs. Roberts 11, will concerts be safe?
Oh, what's her name? Mrs. Roberts?
Yeah.
I would say... Well, first of all, concerts are not safe anyway. You've got crime, you've got drugs, you've got alcohol, you've got all signs of criminal activity. That's just by the by. A professional opinion, moving forwards in time, as we are in this journey of life, I would say watch what happens in the Middle East. If fighting escalates, if the UK seems to be a threat, then I'd say no, they're not, because they are certainly a target for some people. Some people want to do us harm, and remember, they don't do these attacks when their concerts are on. Normally, they do these attacks just when they're finishing and people are leaving, because when people are leaving, there's no security. They just open all the gates and say, right, get out as quick as you can, and it is absolutely chaos. All right, so that is when they're at the most vulnerable. So if you can and you do want to go to your latest concert and see Boyzone or whoever it is, leave 30 minutes early and then you're going to avoid all that mess.
Crystal clean hygiene. Are you the Antichrist?
I don't know. I don't think his hair's as fabulous. No, everybody was talking about this T-shirt that I've got on, and they were saying it was. What were they saying? They were saying, "Oh, is it a heifer?"
Yeah.
No, it's just a T-shirt of a giraffe fighting a lion. What's not normal about that? So yeah, guys, I'll do a
What
T-shirt
damage
video.
did Iran do to Israel?
Sorry.
What damage did Iran do to Israel?
We don't actually know. As we are now, it's very difficult to get a confirmed report of anything. If you listen to the Iranians, they'll say they blew up all this stuff and did all these casualties and X, Y, and Z. If you listen to the Israelis, they'll say no, we destroyed all the missiles before they came in. I suspect the truth is somewhere in between, but it doesn't. The truth doesn't matter. The perception of the truth matters. So whatever people think, whatever is all that matters, because that's what people are going to act on. That's how people are going to think, and that's what's going to stick in people's minds. You know, I don't know what honestly I don't know. I can tell you what both sides have said. You know, who knows really. But I told you when it was going to happen, didn't I? Weeks before. Can you remember that, guys? When I told you the exact date it was going to happen, and I lined out the dates it was going to happen, and people were saying, "Oh, Sean, don't say dates like that. You'll lose credibility." I was like, "Well, yeah, but that's what happened on that date." And I've given you guys my decision-making process, and you know it's stood to reason so far.
This is from Lorraine. Sean, why do you think the British are being suppressed by the police and establishment?
Well, I think it's more than that, actually. I think it's the English that are being suppressed by the police and the establishment. So the police do what the establishment says, don't they? So, you know, it's the establishment that are suppressing through the police, the indigenous people. I've got a really wacky idea. I don't know if it's the... Do you know what? I'll go with it, right? So... It was St. George's Day the other day, and I was thinking about the story of St. George. And, you know, so the story of St. George is, St. George, there was some dragon and it was about to eat a princess, yada, yada, yada. But St. George fought the dragon, he was defeated. St. George got back up and he continued fighting. And he continued fighting and fighting and fighting. And I think the moral of that is just to stand up for what you believe in, no matter the odds. And I think that unites English men, certainly. And I think what the establishment are scared of is English men uniting and coming together with one voice. Because then it will be England for English. And people think that's a bad thing, but look through history, you know, all good things have happened. And I think a similar thing's happening in America as well. I'll say a similar thing's happening in America. You know, look at Texas, for example, as a great example, you know, perfect example. You know, Texans are a proud people. They do their own stuff. You know, it's the Texan way. And there's a war, it seems to me there's a war on Texans. We don't really hear about it in the UK, but at the moment, people in Texas have militarised their border. They're stopping any migrants coming in. And I don't know if this is a thing or not, but I meant to do a video on it, actually. My friend who lives in Texas, he sent me a message. He said, "Oh, look at this. They have like a tax-free sale weekend where they can buy prepping items such as water, canned food, generators, all sorts of stuff to self-sustain yourself. And they get that tax-free in Texas. I don't know if that's like, if they do that every couple of months or if that's just a one-off thing. I don't know. But it really surprised me. So I think there's a war on strong nations that can come together and, you know, and have one voice and fight. That's so, if I answered your question. But I don't know. What do you think?
It will be uploaded the other platform.
Yeah, guys, we upload all these now to our other platform. Right, guys, so I'm going to give you one now about Putin, because we all, you know, the duty enemy. Hang on, it's not coming up. Right, so. Yeah, so.
Irish are going through it at the minute.
Sorry?
Irish.
So, we'll come on to that in a minute. So, in Russia, the Russians have cancelled their Victory Day parade, which is on the 9th of next month, so the 9th of May. So they cancelled that, you know, they're saying they're not having that now. There's lots of different reasons why. The Russians are saying they don't want any Ukrainian drones to slip through. Some people are saying because they've got no military hardware to, you know, to parade on this Victory Day parade. I think that people know that NATO troops are about to enter Ukraine, and I don't think Putin wants to take his foot off the gas. I think he wants to keep pressing now hard before NATO gets in. Now, you could argue this on both ways. You could say, you know, Putin's only doing that because the NATO troops are coming, and you could also say NATO troops are also only coming because Putin's doing that. It doesn't matter, guys. It's going to happen, and I think the sooner that NATO can get into Ukraine and secure that country, you know, the better for everyone. I think that'll be quicker because the fighting will stop almost instantaneously, because there's no way that a Russian military can, you know, outmaneuver, you know, a fully functioning, fully trained NATO military. It's just not going to happen. Then you have to bring in the question of the nuclear weapons, and Russia is the world's leading nuclear superpower. So yeah, so as he's done that, you know, he's threatening a preemptive strike, as I understand it, guys, from my sources. Go and find out yourself. But he's threatening to strike Poland now because Poland have asked for nuclear missiles from America. And again, you know, if they're asking for this, it's pretty much, you know, it's pretty much a given, and they may already be there. So while all these groups are ratcheting up their rhetoric, you know, missiles are being moved into different strategic locations. And the reality is we're not being told any of this in the UK, and I just hope you guys are getting safe. Where are we? Guys, how is everybody's thoughts on this Olympics? You know, what are your thoughts on them? Do people care about the Olympics anymore? You know, is anyone even bothered? You know, I'm certainly not. Yeah, we've just got another one, guys. So, what I'll do is with all these links I'm talking about, when we upload this video to the other platform, I'll put all these links in the bio. But basically, there's a lot of reports coming out now talking about.
Dan Tomo.
Sorry,
I'm just saying thank you, Dan Tomo.
Thank you, Dan Tomo. So yeah, so the world food. The food situation in the world now is absolutely, it's like catastrophic. There's going to be famine in poorer countries. There's no way around it. You know, the poorer countries that can't afford these imports, the cheap imports of, you know, grain and wheat that then feed animals. You can use it for other things, you know, like bread etc. It's just not going to happen because they can't afford it now. With the added increase of fuel prices going up, those farmers are not going to, you know, in fact, they did it on a field near us. You know, those farmers are not going to grow food anymore. They're going to grow rapeseed to turn that into biodiesel, and that's just going to make the food shortages even worse. So let me just give you some statistics here, guys. Right, so agricultural exports are 8%. So they're 8% now. Right, so we'll go, so year-on-year basis from 2022. So every year, they're getting worse and worse and worse from 2022. So, you know, you'll hear it like, oh yeah, the decrease in exports has been 8%. But that's 8% on the year before. So it's kind of like more percentage now. So from 2022, the world has been exporting 34% lower food. So that's more than a third of food is being exported from these countries that are big producers. So the knock-on effect of that is going to be huge. What are you smoking at?
The cowboy hat.
Guys, I love the cowboy hat. If you tell me I've got a cowboy hat on, I'm going to do a lasso. Am I going to do a lasso?
What's the fuel cost in Britain today per litre?
Sorry?
What's the fuel cost? Somebody must be in a different country. What's the fuel cost?
Okay, so I went to Shell the other day by where we live, and Shell's one of the most expensive ones. The cheaper ones are like Morrison's or like a supermarket. But I went to Shell and it cost me £1.61 for 1 litre. So that is like it's over $8 a gallon. It's like $10 a gallon or something.
And water, somebody just mentioned water, and you always set a stock up on.
Yeah, always stock up on water, guys. Okay, try and get you and your family like enough for 3 days. You know, look what's happening in Texas. All right, Texas, they're actually getting a tax cut for buying this sort of stuff. So why would you do that as the government? Why would you do tax cuts? You only do tax cuts if it's going to cost you. If you're going to get a return on that investment. So how are they going to get a return on that investment? Well, if people are self-sufficient in Texas, then they won't have to send them emergency assistance. They won't have to send the army, the state troopers, the police. You know, they'll become less of a casualty then. If I don't mean like a physical casualty. I mean like they won't be a burden. So that's what's happening in Texas. You know, go and Google it yourself. It's called Tax-Free Emergency Preparedness Weekend or something. I think it's next weekend. And then you think, right, okay, so they're doing similar stuff in Poland. They're doing similar stuff in Estonia. In the UK, what are we talking about? We're talking about Richie Sunak and his new laser, which is useless. We're talking about these Rwanda flights that are never going to happen. I called it months ago. I said, guys, not one Rwanda flight. I almost said Uganda. Not one Rwanda flight is ever going to leave. And it's not. They're never going to leave, guys. Not one flight. And I said, if a flight leaves, I'm going to eat my own hair.
We've got War 731. I live in Texas.
And tell us about the sale, buddy. What is the sale? Because it's, my friend Greg, he texted me and I text him back, but he's not messaged me back yet. I don't really understand what it is. Is that like a normal thing that you guys have in Texas, or is it a one-off? I don't know.
The Cure's laughing, saying Dragonfire is not useless.
Yeah, so thank you, Cure. So again, right, okay, so let me caveat that. Dragonfire is good for what it was designed for, which was taking out a high-cost drone. Fine, Predator, Watchkeeper, you've got these big Russian drones with satellite communications on them. Yeah, they'll take those down all day long, and they'll drop them. The problem is, since that Dragonfire requirement was sent to the MOD, warfare's changed. You've now got glide bombs. So you've got glide bombs that the Russians are utilising, and they are doing, they're doing some real damage with these glide bombs. So how will one Dragonfire laser deal with 5 glide bombs coming towards it at 100 kilometers an hour? Now, I've said this a few times. The effective range of the Dragonfire is about 2 kilometers. So you can take the drone down at 2 kilometers. Fine. You need about 30 seconds to burn a hole through that drone at 2 kilometers. Okay, so you need to point that laser at that drone while it's moving on the same spot for 30 seconds. 30 seconds, 2 kilometers, traveling at, let's say 60 kilometers an hour, which they're traveling faster, so it's going to be less than this. So let's say they're traveling at 60 kilometers, 30 mile an hour. So that gives, so by the time you've burned that out the sky, it will be, let me do my maths, it will literally be 1.5 kilometers on you. So you've burned the first one out of the sky in 1.5 kilometers, right? Fine. What are you going to deal with the other 5? How are you going to do with that? You can't. If you use more than five munitions will overwhelm Dragonfire. Then Dragonfire will be gone. Then the whole system will just be an expensive paperweight. And that's the reality of warfare. And we've seen this. We've seen this in Ukraine. That's how the Russians are dealing with things. They're swarming these things. And again, even if they didn't want to do that, all they'd need to do is circle their expensive drone with cheaper drones, and then the Dragonfire would be having to use its time on the cheaper drones. I mean, you can get one for a couple $100 before the big one got in. And guys, honestly, it is good for what it was made for, but the reality is warfare's changed, and unless people can look to the future and understand the threat that's coming, we will just keep spending millions on fighting the last war and having to improvise on the ground.
What do you think about the Dubai floods? Quickly, Sean, do you think it's to do with cloud seeding?
It's absolutely to do with cloud seeding, 100%. There's no denying it. Dubai are the biggest cloud seeders in the world. Somebody just got a little bit, guys. There's no conspiracy here. Dubai cloud seed. They've been doing it like 20 years. So let me come back to Dubai. But there was an incident in the UK. I can't remember it. It's come to me. So basically, like at the end of the Second World War, I want to say 1948. This is terrible. The RAF, they cloud seeded around Devon somewhere, and there were catastrophic floods. The water rose about 158 feet, and like a lot of people died, and it was like, whoa, we need to calm down with this. So yeah, cloud seeding's real. It can be used as a weapon, of course. The people in the United Arab Emirates, they've always been cloud seeding. They've done it for so long. And it was definitely 100%, a product of cloud seeding. Guys, if you don't know what you're doing, don't mess around with the weather. It will always bite you in the arse.
Yeah, why can't they do cloud seeding in countries that suffer from horrendous drought? That's from Tracy Doll.
Yeah, so it's not as easy. So Dubai's, So Dubai's on the coast, so it gets a lot of evaporated water, over the coast of Dubai. The problem is it doesn't drop there because it's too hot, it moves. So what the cloud seeding does, and again, I'm not an expert in cloud seeding, but as from my understanding, what cloud seeding does is that water that's evaporating from the Gulf of, I think it's the Gulf of Aden, I don't know. Basically the seawater, the ocean water, whatever you want to call it, that water that's been evaporated by the sun, there's loads of moisture in the air. So in Dubai, that can come down. Unfortunately, some of these countries, Saharan Africa, those type of regions, they're just too arid. They don't have the moisture in the air to cloud seed in the first place. So that's why it kind of doesn't work there.
Last one, this is from Sharon Owen. What's your take on chemtrails?
Oh, I don't know, really. I don't know. I mean, when I look at them, I just see vapor trails, and that is just, what I see. The reality is I don't know. I see the argument, and it does make sense that, if people want to put something into the atmosphere, that's a perfect way of doing it. Yeah, I don't know. I can see both arguments. I can see people, saying it, but equally, I've been I've been standing on the back of jets with the door open, ready to parachute out, and I've seen the vapor trails, and they stay there for a long time. So I don't really, and I know for a fact there was nothing in those. Well, I think there was nothing in those military aircraft. There was certainly nothing being pumped out from the inside. Could it be done by a civilian entity? Yeah, of course. I mean, we do cloud seeding, so that's proof of it. It's proof of the concept. So I don't know, really. I don't know. I suppose it's possible. Have I any knowledge of it? No. Have I any understanding? No. But yeah, it's certainly a possibility, but I don't know if it's a real thing or not. I suppose the truth, like many things, it's somewhere in between. Some places will do chemtrails for whatever reason, and but I don't think it would be as as much of a big thing as people make out. Guys, I've just got one more I want to get through, and then I am done. So talking about aeroplanes then, guys. So let me just read it. Russia is constantly targeting our planes, say pilots. Here's how it happens. So the story is in the Telegraph, and it talks about how Russia is targeting civilian aircraft and their GPS. Now, a few things from this article are interesting. First of all, I don't know why Russia would be doing that. They're a bit crackers, aren't they? They're not really the most competent of adversaries. First of all, if you start targeting civilian aircraft and targeting areas, then you can look at it and you can see how it's happening, and then you can make countermeasures. So it makes no sense to do it only if you're about to do an attack, if you want to attack that aircraft, you know what I mean? The other thing that's interesting, the only way you can, also they spoof the GPSs on airplanes. So spoofing would be you send a false signal to the GPS system, so the GPS thinks it's here when it's actually here. So that's kind of a big thing as well. Now, the only way that I know, you can't do this from the ground. So the Russians must be doing this from the air. So they must be doing it by satellites. Now, remember like a couple of months back when we all got told of these space nukes? Space nukes are everywhere and Russia has the ability to do space nukes. And, I think I was the only person who came out and said, no, I think Russia has the ability to have a ground-based laser taking out satellites. So, but what I'm trying to get at here, guys, is this whole space warfare thing and how it's coming into fruition and how, online, internet, all this hacking and spoofing and all this stuff, it's happening now to civilian aircraft. So I don't know what the next stage will be. You'd like to think that, the Russians wouldn't target civilian aircraft for attack, but the reality is they already have over Ukraine. They downed MH17. So, it's just one to think about if you're planning your next travel or you're wanting to go on holiday. Maybe we'll go by boat or something. Are we good, Sarah? Because we've gone past 9 o'clock. Yeah. Guys, we're going to go outside and we're going to check on Patch. We're going to make sure Patch is safe. We're going to give Patch some water, some food, and we're going to be the best little bird, stray bird mum and dad that we can be, and we'll keep you guys updated on Patch. Guys, if there's no further questions, I'm going to see you guys tomorrow, and thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and share.
Thank you.
Are we good?
We're good.